Hello and welcome to this very important discussion. And I said very important because it is. We all need to take it very seriously. Why not trying to sound like um, creating fear? That is not my intention. There is no need to be afraid when you have a solution. The purpose of this is to bring to our attention what is going to happen so that we can prepare ahead for it. My explanation of the process may not be meaningful to you, but what matters is so that you will get what you should do and start preparing. That's the goal. So, in case I am not able to give you a financial advisor level um, convincing. All right. If I'm not able to give you the kind of explanation you expect is a financial expert to give, pardon me, I'm not a financial expert. In fact, the reasons I'm just trying to explain so that you have something logical, as an anchor in case you don't take some other things seriously. All right. Uh, but what I'm about telling you are things that are going to happen and you need to be ready. There are signs of it, and that's the essence by the discussion anyway. So let's just move into it. There is an imminent global economic crisis that is going to be experienced, and it's soon. But how do we prepare for it? How do you protect your family and your community from this kind of experience so that it will not cause a major pain? It will not be a major disruption for you. It is going to be a major global disruption. How do you prevent yourself, your family from facing a crisis that no one has ever prepared for? All right. That's the reason why we are discussing this. Pardon me if you can hear background noise. I'm recording in a noisy area, but I have to put this on record for the sake of people who are willing to gain one or two things. All right. So the issue is that over the years, there have been patterns to global economic disruptions. You will see debt building up. People, they say what you're actually spending is debt. I mean, people borrow money from banks. The money they are borrowing does not exist. What creates the money itself is the debt, right? And then there is nothing backing up this debt, unlike before. We now operate on fiat currency globally, and things are getting worse with the digitalization of currencies and so many competing interests all around the world. Now, I may not be able to convince you completely, but I know you have an idea of what I'm talking about and something you can do further research on. So there is debt building up. People are multiplying their leverages based on what is so-called available. Um, we don't have formal banks alone. We now have multiplication of um, lending lending entities that are not properly regulated, and this is a massive industry on its own. So we have bubbles, people doing things, massive things, and you know when these things start happening, and when it comes to a point where people cannot trust the ability of the government to deliver, to protect, trust in the system breaks, and you just need a little trigger for disaster to set in. Let me try and move fast. History has happened before. We remember or probably just heard of the Great Depression in 1929 to 1939, when the stock market crashed, and it was a devastating crisis globally. And then the 2007 uh, recession from the housing market crash, and then very recently the COVID recession, which in fact, as I'm talking to you, we have not recovered from. We haven't recovered from COVID. Growth has slowed, and nations have not recovered. And there is nothing that stops another um, events to happen, currently. And like we know, or like, what has been shown after a long period of investigation and all that, things that are coming out is that this issue of COVID was even um, something that was engineered. And the people who have engineered it, they have not backed down. And because they have an agenda that has not been carried out, that has not been fulfilled yet. Because as we speak, the US dollar is still standing, is still the most reliable currency most utilized in all the world. So money can fail. That is not a news. Hyperinflation, loss of trust, leads to failure. And the current situation in the world, if you are aware of it, the debt rate in the world today is unlike is ever known in history. Growth is slowing, inflation is still persisting. Like I mentioned, we've not recovered from COVID. Multi-regional wars are taking place. And when I talk about multi-regional wars, we are talking about major issues that triggered, global crisis in the past, that have done that in the past. Wars, diseases, and other things like that in the midst of the already existing risk. And then, like I said, those who are pushing for globalization, they are still at it, and they are ready to use any means possible to achieve it. We only have a taste in COVID. The global debt today is over 348 trillion. And, before, it is the government that comes to the aid of the private sector and all that. But even as we speak, governments all over the world, they are in serious debt. In major regional, in certain blocks, the government, the GDP to debt ratio is already debt to GDP ratio is already high. Imagine markets having 235% of their GDP to pay debts. So it's a whole lot of things going on already in the world today, and you need to pay attention to what is going on. And the situation I'm trying to describe to you, and I hope I'm able to successfully do that, is that the world is coming to a point where, with the right trigger, which certainly is going to come for two reasons. One, the people who were behind COVID, they are still at it. Two, we are already set up for a massive collapse if it's going to happen. It's a setup already. How many countries have any gold or substance backing up their currency? Almost none. And any little thing that could trigger any crisis right now is going to be massive, especially when there is something else that causes a lockdown. So we are already in the analysis shows that we are already when we look at patterns over centuries, when massive global crisis happened, we are already at the late stage of our own time. COVID was just like a pretest. It wasn't the real thing. Probably it was just a leak, something that happened before they planned it to happen. And it caused the kind of effect you could see. Imagine what will happen if they eventually now succeeded in doing it, and they have not backed down. That's the reality. Let's not keep deceiving ourselves. The people behind COVID, they've not stopped whatever they are planning because they've not achieved their goal. Let me stop there. We'll continue in the next session. All right, welcome back. So, what we are saying is that we are coming into a time when you would rather have your food than cash. In fact, if you are not, the reality is that when those kind of crises happen, the banks, even the banks, will not release the money with them. So it is those who are even having cash that wants to spend. But that time, that cash would have lost great value, that people would prefer to have goods, their food at home, rather than depend on cash. And that's why we are making this kind of discussion so that you will be prepared. What are the things you need to do? What are the things you need to do to survive and thrive in this particular period in the history of the world? It is a period in the history of the world like we've never seen before. You know, the events that are leading up to it are already showing us that something is about to happen that we have never witnessed before. We have never had this kind of situation where debt is so high, not just private level, even at the government level. Nations are just borrowing, and guess what? There is nothing backing the money they are even borrowing. No substance. It's not like before where the money is backed up by substance, by gold, by silver. It's a different ballgame. Right now, the paper itself is the money because of government approval. And now, even the government is in debt. The reserves of nations, they are low. And governments are not also in great position to protect institutions when crisis hits. By the way, we have not even recovered from COVID. Any other trigger, anything like COVID that hits this time around is going to be massive. And we are saying that you don't have to wait for that to happen for you to be ready. Even if it does not happen, you are in good standing if you have all these things in place. We have few years to be prepared for it, and it is wisdom for you to be prepared. Even if it does not happen, you will be in good standing to have prepared, to be ready. We are not talking about hoarding things. That is not what we are saying. We are talking about preparation, having resilience in times of crisis. That's what we are discussing, right? And what are the things you need to do? One first major thing is that if you are in debt right now, begin to clear your debt. Have a strategy. If it is so huge, have a strategy to clear your debt within the next 2 years. Institutions have a way of protecting themselves. In fact, like I said, banks will keep your money. You will not be able to withdraw and you will not be able to do anything about it. So build up your reserve. Don't practice anything unsafe, but build up your reserve. And the second thing is food. Like I said, people at this time, people will rather have food than stockpiles of money. Because who is going to collect the money from you? What do you want to use it to get? If you see some of the pictures I showed earlier on, I passed quickly over them. When one of the crises hits, children were playing with stockpiles of money. And what is about to come is going to be more serious than that, in all respect. But there is going to be safety for people who heed warning. It is possible for crisis to hit and some people not to feel it. They may feel it in the sense of they have to interact with the larger society, but they are protected in their own base. It has happened before, it is about to happen again. So secure your food assets and build other assets, which I'm going to be talking about now. The first one is commodity assets. In terms of, I said fiat currency is going to fail, but gold and silver is going to be more valuable in those kind of period where that kind of crisis is going to hit, because the reality is that those are the substance. Those have real value. When the fiat currency loses its value, the value of gold and silver will still be there. And so you can dedicate 10 to 20% of your income in version to gold and silver. And I'm not a financial advisor, but I don't think the bank is the place to keep it. The next important thing to do is to begin to create for yourself energy assets. You cannot afford to be dependent on the government in this kind of a period, because the government will not be able to support you. money to feed the system will not be available. And so electricity and power is very important. You cannot afford to not have your own independent system, at least if not personal, because this fits into what I'm going to be talking about next. This is a time where communities need to build structures for themselves. All the things I've been talking about cannot be properly executed by individuals. In fact, if we leave it to individuals, a lot of people are going to suffer. And in the coming times, that is when some of you will realize how important faith is, because we are entering a time that you will not be able to survive without faith. I'm talking about faith in God. So this is not a joke. This is not a matter of let's debate. You cannot debate reality out of existence. You may be angry against God, but you cannot talk him out of existence. And the better you align with your source, the more you align with your source, the better for you in the coming days, because it is going to be an advantage for you. I mean, connected to that is to build a network of people around you. Connect to a network, a faith network, not because you want to get something, but because you want to belong to it. That is what will work for you. Then there should be a network in place where goods and transactions can be done without the need for money. What somebody has, what somebody is able to generate, they can exchange it for what somebody else has and is able to generate without depending on money in between transaction. We need to learn to eliminate the need for money. Otherwise, the coming crisis will eat hard on some people. If you have the capacity to develop the infrastructure for this exchange to happen, I was trying to build it. I saw that the need or what it takes is far more serious than what I have. I had to stop, but it's very important. If you are listening to me right now and you have the ability, the capacity, the resources, probably you are a leader of a community, of an organization that believes in building network, then you need to be prepared for something global, and we need to up our game and connect. So build a faith network, join a faith network. Leaders of organizations need to map out strategies to protect their people in this kind of time. We have come to the end of the discussion. Thank